Read Junk.
Read Junk.
ReadJunk
Podcast.
ReadJunk Podcast with your host, my guy.
Hey everyone, this is Bryan from the ReadJunk Podcast. How's it going? What's new? Oh yeah, Trump lost the election, which is great news. It's just been a little stressful on that the last couple of weeks. Unfortunately, COVID is still very much here, and it's going to get really bad. If not, it's already pretty bad. It's going to be like that for a while, which this podcast is sort of related to that because it's all about the future of concerts. Chris came up with this idea, so he kind of ran with it and invited his buddies Drew and Jason onto the podcast. They also do a podcast called Devil's Due Podcast. Drew has been on this podcast before with Chris, and they talked about Metallica, so expect a little bit of Metallica talk in this podcast episode as well. We discuss what's going to happen with concerts in the future. Will there be some vaccine-proof thing at the door? There was an article, I think, in Billboard.com about it recently, about Ticketmaster trying to get vaccine checks. Will there be temperature checks at the door? Will Live Nation and venues charge a lot more for bands to even play? Will the live streaming experiences replace touring for some of these bands? And we even talk a little about how Brexit could even affect a lot of your favorite UK bands from touring Europe and the US. Be sure to follow the site on social media, and you can find all the links in the description, or you can just visit ReadJunk.com for all your ReadJunk needs. So let's get started. Here's Chris, Drew, Jason, and myself chatting about the bleak future of concerts right here on the ReadJunk Podcast.
So hi everybody.
Hey. So
What up?
Hi.
Chris had an idea to talk about, I guess, the future of concerts and what that's going to look like in 2021 and now too. I mean, I guess it's happening, but since this is your baby today, Chris, you have at it. I'm just going to be the stupid guy making comments on the side.
Well, it's my baby Yoda, so just make sure he doesn't eat any eggs. So basically what I wanted to do is I wanted to call this podcast to order because recently there's come to light some suggestions were made by Ticketmaster, which I guess we're going to just jump right into. So as everybody knows, we probably haven't gone to a concert in a while. I guess I just want to open this up first before we go in. Like, what was everybody's last concert? And I'll start with Bryan. Did you happen to go to a concert here in 2020?
Yeah, and I'm lucky I did. It was January, I think the end of January at Gramercy Theater in New York City. It was the Addicts punk show. So that was a really good one to go to because it was very iconic, just the way that they are great performers. But yeah, that was the only one I really went to this year. Which is funny, that concert is when my credit card got stolen when I was at the show. So it was like half the show I was on the phone with the credit card company. So it was a very memorable show.
You didn't do like a photo pit on that, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I got good photos.
I guess I want to circle back on that a little later, when we talk about return to shows and how we'll feel on that. But I guess, I don't know, I have a feeling me, Drew, and Jay all did the same thing. So let me just, before we kind of jump into, hitting those dudes up, also joining us on this, I've had my friend Drew in Buffalo on the show before. He also co-hosts a podcast, Devil's Due, which reviews, they used to review Marvel Netflix series, but since those aren't really a thing anymore,
so
now they
Disney
review
Plus?
Comic books and all other things. And also joining us will be Jason, my other friend from Buffalo, who also does photography as well as plays in the Long Call Dark whenever we can do shows again. So I guess I kind of wanted to put this out there. I mean, one of the last shows that I saw was Machine Head, and I'm just assuming the last shows that you guys, I guess we'll start with Drew. Was that the last show you guys saw, the Machine Head show in Buffalo?
No. Or was it? No.
I'm pretty sure that it was.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Okay. My timeline is confused.
Because that was February, which is like when Machine Head comes to Buffalo for some reason.
Yeah, that's like they're on a schedule in Buffalo.
And then by early March, we were shut down in New York. So that's and that's the last in-person live show, not counting streams and stuff.
You guys didn't have that Devin Townsend show didn't make it out to upstate New York, did it?
No.
I screwed up and I missed out on tickets on it, which is weird because my work actually was a sponsor for the concert, and I didn't try to like make a connection and be like, "Yo, man, how about some free tickets, yo? Devin Townsend, what the heck, man?"
I think it did hit Toronto, but for whatever reason, I didn't make an attempt to go.
It was on like a Tuesday, and it was just like impossible to get up there. Not impossible, but it's more difficult nowadays to do a weekday show that's going to run late and you drive home a couple hours.
Well, you guys had, I know that a lot of us, probably had a lot of shows we had planned. I mean, there was probably a lot of shows you had that you were going to go to. Like, I know, Drew, like, we were planning on going to New Japan at Madison Square Garden, and obviously that didn't happen this year. And I don't know if it's even going to happen last year, but I think some of the other shows that you guys were planning on going to, I think 9 Inch Nails was one of them, right?
Let me tell you what. This came out after the quarantine had all been, firmly set in place nationwide and everything. It came out that there was a 5-night stand in Toronto that 9 Inch Nails were going to do, and all I could think was I would have gone to every single one of those shows. I would have taken all my time off of work. I would have booked a hotel, and I would have gone to Toronto for the entirety of that duration.
I can second that.
Jason and I also had tickets to see Gojira and Deftones in Toronto in August, and that was not to be.
Tool in May
in Buffalo, that was not to be.
So when did you guys buy these tickets, though?
The Machine.
What's that?
When did you buy tickets for these? That like the one in August? Like when did they go on sale?
Oh God.
I think the Deftones ones hit like in February or March, because I was supposed to.
Right.
Because I was going to go to the one in Connecticut, and then they canceled it because they couldn't finish the venue to COVID, and they moved it without refunding our money to Mohegan. And I'm like, well, I kind of needed to shift that money over to pay for these other tickets. And then they just straight up canceled both shows. But I guess what I kind of wanted to ask, I guess in reference to shows that maybe we were planning on going to, or I guess to any of you guys, do you still have tickets for shows that have been moved, or has everything been 100% canceled and refunded?
We were on the fence about the Gojira Deftones thing, but the only thing about it that made us basically agree to punt them was that show that the tickets we had the tickets we had were for the Toronto show, and the border situation right now is completely unpredictable. Like, even if the show goes on, there's no guarantee the border is going to be open for us to go there due to COVID. So
I mean, can't you just wear Maple Leaf shirts?
That I mean, it would singe my skin and I might die en route. But there's just no way of knowing. So like at best, we could get secondary market tickets to like a Pennsylvania show or something. They're doing a show in like Pittsburgh or something, but all things considered, I don't know that I'm in a hurry to leave New York State right now. So anyway, other than that, we got refunds on everything. The only thing that I don't have a refund on yet are actually my AEW Rochester tickets. So they didn't cancel that show; it just keeps getting postponed. There was a window for refunds, but I guess as long as they keep postponing it, I'm just going to hang on to the tickets and see what the atmosphere is like when they announce the show. But I don't foresee that happening for quite a while, given the circumstances of, everything right now.
Did you keep a set of Tool tickets? Because we had 2.
I sold them both.
Okay.
I sold or refunded both. Yeah.
I had 2 sets of Rage Against the Machine's tickets, and I
was going to buy those.
I kept a pair because that was going to be in Buffalo, so once it gets rescheduled, I'm still and was planning at the time. I started with 300 level, then the next day like 200 level opened up, so I grabbed a pair of those, figuring I would StubHub or punt the 300 level ones, which I ended up just getting a refund on because I didn't want to wait a year to figure out if this was going to happen. If the show still happens, I am still planning on finding floor at some point, but at least I know I have those 200 levels if nothing else works out.
I was going to get those tickets like closer to the show, and then that just never happened. I actually have tickets that were supposed to be for May for Madness at where the hell, Hammerstein Ballroom, but they postponed it for next year. So I'm holding on to that because the last time I saw them was in 1999 at Irving Plaza, and it was one of the best concerts of my life. So it's like I've been waiting for them for like over 20 years to go play. So I guess I can wait another year.
I was kind of wondering though. I mean, maybe I'm kind of jumping ahead where I wanted to be on this, but maybe it's a good transition to bring it up. I do wonder, like, some of the bands that were going to do reunions or bands that were on their way out, not to, like, say, like, oh, Kiss was actually going to retire, but some of the older bands that were actually planning on,
or should,
they were going out. I wonder if, like, they're going to turn around, if there's going to be some bands that are going to be a little too freaked out to hit the road when we kind of get the all clear, or if like, we miss the road, if the entire market for, like, reunion tours or, like, oh, it's the 20th anniversary of Wisconsin Death Trip, if they're still going to milk that stuff, if that's still going to have a market, or maybe that's going to be the only way it's going to get people out to shows.
I think it would, and I think that, large gathering events like that are going to be the last thing. So by the time those come back, I don't know that there will be much worry. Because if there is still a risk, they're not going to jam 20 to 40,000 people in a place. My main concern is, unfortunately, because we're all getting older, most of my favorite bands are getting older. And, I already wonder how many years are left in a band like Metallica. And it seems like they're going strong. But if this lasts like another year, and maybe not them per se, because they seem to keep in pretty good shape, but there's other older artists that I would still like to see that were touring. And it's already a crapshoot how much longer they're going to be around. Even if you look at somebody like, I like Pink Floyd, so Roger Waters or David Gilmour, these guys are in their 70s. You postpone them another year, are they even going to play again? And that's what sucks about that situation.
Yeah, but to the same extent, I can remember pretty much ever since, like, the 90s, people saying, oh, man, the Rolling Stones are going to hang it up. This is their last tour.
Yeah.
Didn't they have a tour plan? They did, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Genesis, like, Phil Collins is, like, he's kind of, I don't think he can stand up anymore, but, yeah, Genesis was supposed to be touring still.
Put Keith back in the... In the crypt for a little while. Wake him up when COVID's over.
Well, he might actually be like the patient zero or whatever that has like the cure. So if we extract whatever's left of his blood, we can use that to sample out.
It's the old Dennis Leary joke. Like, Keith, we can't do any drugs. You already did them all. We have to wait till you die and smoke your ashes.
So I guess I want to try to transition over to this because I kind of had a lot of talking points off of this. So there was this Billboard article that came out last week that basically had mentioned some different ways that Ticketmaster and Live Nation wanted to approach. Well, really, it mainly pressed on one. So basically, they said that they were looking to do kind of a pre-screen before shows. They said that due to HIPAA compliance, they wouldn't see the results. So basically what they were looking for was they were either looking for a confirmed negative test prior to you coming to the show or proof that you had received your vaccination. Now, they claim that they were following along with HIPAA laws, which I kind of take that with a little air of grievance. But a couple days later, they backed off and said that that article was not 100% true, and that was only one of the avenues they were exploring, which I thought was a little weird. So I kind of want to get everybody's thoughts on this.
I'm not going to be one to defend, like, Ticketmaster, but at the same time, I understand their position here. Like, everybody, come on, man. We all want to, like, get back to stuff, and they're in the business of providing the means to getting us to stuff. Whatever you think about that business, obviously I'm not a fan of their practices and whatnot, but I'm just saying that's their business. So they're just looking at ways to get back to business. And, you know, if you really think about the way forward, that's not that outlandish, although it is a little Orwellian, but which is why I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to like push back, like, yeah, I got to show my papers. What am I? Was this Germany in 1942?
But you're going to have to agree. You know, you're going to have to agree to something like that, because they can't just ask you for that as you're entering the show, because that would be a violation of HIPAA to ask somebody, got your medical shit in order. But if it's part of the terms and agreement to purchase a ticket, then I think maybe you have a way around that.
Well, I mean, I could see clubs just going forward, regardless of COVID or not, just doing temperature checks. But it might, like, even for bands, it'd be a lot of canceled shows after that, because if if they're touring, they usually get sick on some part of the tour. But I don't know, maybe for just to customers.
Yeah, this was something I wanted to talk about, because it's like, okay, so if you're going to put forth that requirement, I know they rebutted on it and said that, okay, that was only one of the options. But, like, I was talking with Drew about this earlier in the week, and I've actually seen two different perspectives on this. So Randy from Lamb of God had posted up on his Instagram stories. He kind of put up a long, lengthy thing, which I wish he still had his Twitter for, because it was actually pretty insightful, where he had mentioned that, you know, over the years when he was still using drugs and everything, when he was still doing all that stuff, he's like, I tried every drug. He's like, you think I'm afraid of taking a vaccination? He's like, if me taking a vaccination will get me back out on the road, yes, I'll do it. But there's a flip side to that. So there's this conspiracy podcast. I won't mention what name it is, because I don't think anybody should waste their oxygen in time in their life.
Alex Jones.
That's another one. But
does Stephen Carpenter like this podcast?
Yeah. Yeah, so obviously one of my favorite bands, and I know Jay and everybody else likes them, Deftones, Stephen Carpenter was a guest on this podcast, and he basically came out and said that he was anti-vaccination. So I find that interesting, because if you're going to put forth some kind of a requirement for saying you need negative test or proof of a vaccination, like, okay, that's one thing for fans going in, but you're talking about bands that are going to be touring, bands and their crew that are going to be touring the entire country. Like, don't you think they need to be held to that same standard?
Well, yeah, because they're spitting and singing, and, you know, all the stuff they do on stage gets whipped into the front couple rows. So I would think, you know, I don't want Lars spitting his drink in my face anymore at the moment.
If ever.
Yeah.
Well, I will notice this. I will note this too. I mean, I'm going to bring up a few references from wrestling, because in Japan they've actually increased the capacity, and I believe at Wrestle Kingdom, I think they're either operating at a quarter or half capacity for the Tokyo Dome. But there has been quite a few things that I've noticed, and even AEW, which is operating in Jacksonville. The Khan family owns that stadium and the shed that's attached to it, Daly's Place, and they've been allowing fans in at a limited thing. But one of the things that I've noticed, especially in Japan, is you have a lot of guys, you know, in wrestling, it's traditionally a gimmick-ridden thing where they'll either spit a water bottle at front, or you'll have some wrestlers that'll like do like the blinding mist, you know, as part of their gimmick. None of them are doing any of that now. So
no. that's not happening for a while.
Which kind of sucks, because it's like, oh man, how's he going to win this match if he can't spit in the guy's face?
Well, you know, first they took it away from Lance Archer. We should have saw it coming for everybody else.
Yeah, it sucks, because when I saw New Japan at in Lowell that one time, I got so many cool shots of them like doing the mist sprays out of their mouth, and I'm like, well, I'm never gonna get those again.
R.I.P. Bushi.
Yeah, but basically, I guess one of the things I kind of wanted to bleed into when we're talking about, I guess, AEW, because one of their ticketing plans in Florida, they're allowed to bring in a certain amount of guests per area. I guess there's one stadium, one of the football teams is actually saying that they're going to go full tilt, but I haven't read too much about that. But with AEW, they're doing about 1,000 in that
In Daly's place.
In Daly's place, yeah. And one of the problems is that while they have this nice program in place to make sure that they sell blocks of tickets to groups of people so that, you know, if you're a family and friends, you can sit together. But there's one problem with that. If someone secondary markets and sells those tickets, now you don't have people that are supposed to be sitting together, because there's one guy I follow that used to do like NXT scoops that does a lot of the Florida shows. And I see him constantly on Twitter saying, hey, this guy's selling tickets. I'm like, no, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, that was my concern with the Ticketmaster thing. Like, they can make it, they can put up all those kind of rules and whatever for buying the tickets or whatever, but the minute you sell, there's going to be scalpers and bots. The second they hit the secondary market, how do you know who has them and what their situation is? And then, you're not going to be able to get a quick test at the door. Lines are already brutal at the doors for shows. Now you're going to make people like get their temperature taken and God knows what else. Like,
urine, rectal exam.
It's a total nightmare.
I'll never forget the Mastodon Gojira show at the Palladium where they had one line for everything, like people buying tickets, people doing,
guest list,
picking up tickets, one line. And not that I was mad about missing the hipster owl band, but I just got in when Gojira was coming on. I was like, thank God I got in, because I would have threw a fucking bitch fit if I missed Gojira.
Yeah, as you should.
So I guess one of the things I kind of want to talk about, I guess, if we're talking about moving along with like going to clubs and stuff like that. I guess one of the bigger stories that came out was that Live Nation and Ticketmaster were going to start cutting artist guarantees, and I guess I kind of wanted to segue into this discussion because bands are already hurting in general touring, and I remember a few years ago I went to a VIP thing for Devin Townsend, and he basically had put out that his whole VIP thing was paying for the tour thing, and they were only going to come out in the black. They weren't, it was the only thing keeping them from losing money on the tour. So bands were already losing money. So, I mean, while it's questionable whether we're going to see some bands after this, some bands and even some clubs after this, I could imagine that not only are we as fans going to get feed, but I'm pretty sure that there's going to be clubs that are going to have to take out extra insurance to, help themselves out in case they, become some sort of super spreader event. I mean, I don't know. Like, do you guys have anything about this?
I was kind of hoping that at the end of this, it was almost going to be a little bit of a reset.
Yeah.
Just because you can already see a lot of people online talking about, wanting to get back to shows and bands wanting to play stuff. And I'm really hoping when we come out the other side of this that the enthusiasm will be back, that it won't just be, oh, there's an event going on, let's go there and drink and half pay attention. Maybe we'll get back to the type of shows that you used to see in the late 90s or throughout the 90s where people were apeshit to see their favorite bands. And it wasn't just like I paid $100, now it's so weird now because, or previous to COVID, that people were paying exorbitant amount of fees.
Yeah, that Tool show. And
didn't really care about what they were seeing. It was almost like, we're going to shell out this money because it's a thing to do. And I know I'm veering away from your initial point, but I was kind of hoping, even from a Ticketmaster standpoint or somebody, maybe.
Well, no, I mean,
maybe
you do bring up
that,
a valid point. I mean, me and Bryan, when we were at the Misfits show, like, there were people watching fucking YouTube, like, while the bands were on. It's like,
the band that they were seeing live.
Oh my God.
I'm like, dude,
wow.
You're paying for the Misfits. This is a once in a fucking lifetime show right now. and you can't be bothered to look down.
I mean, I have no hope that people are going to be. I mean, it will probably be for a little while, like when the first month, where people are like, yeah, we're concerts again. But I think after that, people will be if there's at least if there's phones around, people are going to look at them. It's just the way it is.
That's what I've been saying.
Well, you have to think about this with the Misfits thing, and I remember seeing this like a while ago because it popped up again. The only reason that we were able to have phones in Madison Square Garden for that show is because that Yonder company or whatever the company was that wanted to do the pouches, they wanted to upcharge them for that show, and they were like, "Fuck no, we're not paying that."
Yeah, I was going in thinking that we were gonna have to do that, so that was kind of good, at least.
I was hoping that this whole thing might almost drive places like StubHub and Ticketmaster out of business. And I know maybe that's not really what I mean, because there's obviously a lot of people that are employed and have to, rely on that type of stuff. But we do need a reset on this, like show promotion, tickets. It's gotten out of hand. And it's not that these artists don't deserve this stuff, but tickets are 3 times what they were. And I don't know that the artist even still gets
the lion's share.
The bulk of that. Like, you'd think it just demand for a band like Metallica or something, but I don't know if that's the case. It just seems to be more greed and more. And for some reason, we're all still paying it.
Well, I mean, what you guys don't see a lot of, and I guess maybe because I've seen the other side of this, there's a lot of real shitty deals that clubs have made with, where they're like, if you're going to play here, you have to give us like X percentage of your T-shirt sales that you sell at this show.
Or sell tickets to your fans.
That's fucking...
kind of thing.
Yeah, so, I mean...
That's terrible.
That's that, but, I mean, you also have to realize that, like, coming out of this, and I know, Jay, you said, that you were hoping that it would kind of reverse the roles, but the way that I've seen it, there's been a couple clubs up here, and I don't know how it's been outside of Buffalo, but we've definitely seen at least one club in Boston shut down, and I think there was another club that shut down, but I know there's a GoFundMe right now for one club in Providence, and they've only made like $7,000 of the $200,000 that they said they needed to function for the rest of the year, and we're going into this December. There is a possibility, and this is really going to just destroy the industry in general, that Live Nation comes out and they buy these clubs because they're in danger of going under, and they're all kind of under that umbrella. So that gives Live Nation the leverage to really push we're only going to give you X percentage of your guarantee that you're asking. And that really kind of puts artists in a dangerous territory where it's like, they were already hurting to tour before.
But how long can something like that last? I'll be perfectly realistic here. Like, if we're talking the time frames that they're talking about in terms of a vaccine, we're looking at a year from now. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Live Nation can try to set themselves up to control everything, but if this lasts another year, they may have just made the worst decision they could have made by buying up clubs that will have no people in them.
Well, that's true, but you also have to remember that they have a lot of capital that, from ripping us off for years. But at the same time, like, you also have to remember that the original projection that I heard maybe like a couple months ago, and maybe this has changed, was they were saying that fall at best next year was when they were expecting shows to return in the U.S. at some capacity. They didn't say if it was going to be limited or not, but judging by people's response, I mean, since the beginning of this, it's like every time I turn around, I'm like, well, maybe at the end of May we'll be good. It's like, okay, maybe we hang on, maybe July will be good. Then, you know what? We just wait a little longer, August, and then it was like, I don't know when the hell we're getting out of this. I mean, we got to kind of get over these hurdles. I mean, right now it's like we're going to have a presidential switch coming in January, and it's pretty clear that there's going to be some sort of attempt to control the virus, that you're going to have some people that already aren't listening that are going to be forced to listen to, and that really kind of sets the next steps for whether or not we're going to be able to continue with these. But I also feel like, to an extent, that we're kind of picking on live music and wrestling and other kind of events, because I've legit passed by baseball games where nobody's wearing masks and they're all sitting next to each other. It's like, why do they get a pass and we don't?
Because they're not jumping up and down and sweating all over each other is probably part
And it's
of it.
outside.
It's outside. I mean, you still should be distanced. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're sitting next to somebody and they sneeze, you're screwed no matter what, if they have something. So that's still a risk. I think, unfortunately, there's just certain states and certain areas that don't care. And the other thing that's maybe the most annoying is the most vocal people about, when are we going to get shows back? When are we going to do this and all this? Those are the people that are prolonging this because they're being dickheads about not wearing masks and protecting everybody.
Yeah, I think I saw Jamie Josta maybe 2 hours after Biden was confirmed winning Pennsylvania. Like, all right, can we book a tour now? I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up, man.
Yeah, yeah, that whole philosophy. Oh, as soon as the election's over, you watch, it's just going to disappear as if it was a hoax. And it's
boy.
Nope, it's worse than ever.
It's actually worse than it was when we shut the whole country down, and now nobody really seems to care.
Yeah, I kind of canceled whatever plans I had for today because it was like, oh yeah, we had close to 1,000 positives in one day. I think I'm just gonna stay home and listen to records.
I mean, that's always a good idea anyway, right?
Yeah.
We were spinning the Demon Knight soundtrack before we came down to do this podcast, so.
Nice. I guess one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about, because I guess if we're talking about how much harder it's going to be financially for some bands to tour, especially considering they're going to be cutting rates. I mean, I know some of us just watched, there was a Metallica All Within My Hands benefit concert that they had. It was a live streaming video experience. And it seems like there's a lot of bands that have been doing it, and they've been, seeing some nice critical acclaim for it. Like Trivium did a whole thing where they made so much money they went and bought an airplane hangar to, was their new rehearsal space, streaming and everything. And I know that Devin Townsend has done some weird interactive things, and Code Orange has done some things too. I mean, do you guys think that maybe some bands are going to use these kind of experiences to maybe supplement touring, or maybe just kind of do more of these as opposed to doing full length 2-run tours?
I mean, I think they will. I think some bands will choose to do both. But I mean, for now, there's tons of people that are doing this kind of just to be aware or make people be aware that they still exist. But I see bands eventually just touring locally and then kind of branching out once things kind of die down towards the end of next year. I don't know. That's my perspective.
I question the longevity of the online ticket thing. Like, the big acts can get away with that. I'll plunk down money for Metallica, but I know, several smaller bands that have done it, and it might, if you're a fan of that band, cool, but I think the novelty will wear off quickly. Like, going to see a band once every couple years is it's an event. If that same band is selling you a virtual ticket every few months or whatever, you're gonna see that peter out.
Well, I mean, I got to be honest with you. I didn't watch every Metallica Monday that they had, but it definitely was something that kind of programmed me to watch it. I mean, I watched most of them, but this Metallica show today was the only one that I actually paid for. I know that I missed out on all the Devin Townsend ones. I missed out on the Mr. Bungle experience, which I heard was kind of funny with the little reactions. Like, they had Henry Rollins and Brian Posehn in between songs when they didn't have, crowd reaction. I thought it was pretty cool, but, I mean, yeah, I do question how much longer it can go. I mean, all these little cover songs that everybody's doing, yeah, it's all fun, but I'm starting to lose interest.
It got old already.
Yeah.
Just even the free ones. It was just every weekend. It's I would try to okay, this is great, and then after a while, it's man, I got shit to do. It's the same thing with going to actual concerts. As eventually, it's all right. I mean, somebody's gonna watch. I'm not.
Hey, it's 2 minutes to late night with members of Mastodon, Converge, Mutoid Man, and every other band that's affiliated with Converge and Cave In.
I think it depends on who it is, and yeah, you can't do them all. I mean, being a massive Metallica fan, I watched most of the Metallica Mondays, but I didn't do them all. It would depend on the tour. Some of them I knew better than others, and if they busted out kind of a rare show or something that I knew had interesting tracks on it, then I'd be down. But yeah, I mean, they did them for 3 months or something, and it's tough to set aside every Monday night. But the official ones, you know, we went to the drive-in to see the one Metallica show. That was pretty cool. Obviously, nowadays for the Northeast, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
The Devin Townsend one, I've only watched one of them, but it was pretty cool. And this acoustic Metallica thing. But again, it kind of depends on the artist and what they can afford to do. And not every band's going to be able to do, you know, Devin Townsend sitting there playing with 3 versions of himself against like a PS5 video game looking background.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really neat, but you know, he has the resources and the connections to set something like that up. Metallica had the resources to do what they did. But if you think of a smaller band or even a local band that hasn't been able to play, you know, you might be able to do a green screen thing if you're fancy enough, but
I mean, I've seen people do it outside, like at private events. I've seen some bands like ska bands and some punk bands that do they're just kind of spaced out outside, and they've done it that way. And you know, I've gotten invited to that, but I'm like, yeah, I'm still not going.
I know there's been some bands too that like I saw some bands like there's one photographer locally in New England who's been out of work because all he does is live photography.
How? Tell me the secret.
Yeah, he ended up doing a band's Halloween show picks in New Hampshire, and I'm like, okay. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's just like
use a 400 millimeter lens. That's.
I feel bad because it's like I thought about this in terms of maybe not just music but wrestling as well, even though wrestling has kind of come back in areas where they can allow it. But like you think about a lot of bands, like say if you were a band that was just putting out your album at the beginning of this and you had all these cool tours or maybe European festivals lined up and all that went away and every little bit of steam you had to push your album is done. I mean, if you're like you were already hurting as a band before because, you know, if you couldn't get your music approved for like Spotify, you know, I think Drew, didn't you guys have issues getting like at least 1 or 2 of your albums up on like Pandora or something like that?
Yeah, for a while Pandora would they had Infinity, but they didn't have Captive or the first record, and I kept submitting it and they wouldn't accept it, and I was kind of like, hey, you've got our one record on here. Here's the other ones, and they I forgot why they wouldn't put it up, but anyway, they eventually did make it on there I have no idea how, but they eventually did make it on there.
Yeah, but you know that sucks. But it's like I also wonder too, like you know, obviously, you know, I know the long running joke is, you know, when this whole thing first held out, they were like, oh, we have to do limited capacity shows. You know, we can only have so many people here, and every local band was like, oh, already ahead of you. But,
yeah, have you been to a ska show? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess the one thing that I'm kind of questioning is like local bands already had trouble bringing fans out before all this. I mean, how's that going to work after this? I mean, this is like almost like another excuse for people to not come out to shows and be like, yeah, I just don't know. I don't feel safe. My cat has diarrhea.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's something to that, but I am also, again, going back to my previous point, I'm hoping, and I don't know if it'll be a long-lasting thing, but I'm hoping once shows come back, the bands that have made it through that, if somebody's playing a show, it's tough for me to say this because I don't know if I feel this way, but my attitude towards going to things is maybe different than other people's. I'm also just getting old, but I'm just kind of hoping that the energy would be there to be like, oh, you know, shit, a band's playing.
Yeah.
This hasn't happened in a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Maybe we should go see The Long Cold Dark or go see whoever, and there'd be some interest again. Even if it's fleeting, it might be nice to just get that resurgence because people haven't had it in so long.
Well, I mean, you know, I'd be coming out because I probably have to play bass anyway, considering Adam quit or some shit.
It's complicated, but yeah, that's probably accurate.
No, nobody knows any state of the band right now.
So wait, does that mean that I got a promotion now? Like Phil's up to 4 and I'm up to 5 now?
Sure.
Phil's replacing
right.
me on guitar. You're taking bass, and I'm gonna program drums in the background.
Yeah, there we go.
You guys pay me. I'll take photos.
You can.
I can't.
Well,
We can't pay you, but you're welcome to come out to Buffalo, and we'll I don't know. I can make a mean cocktail if that helps.
well, no, he
straight
could,
edge.
he could be
Mocktail.
he could be like the guy in Rollins' band that just sits there with the headphones on. He could be that guy.
Is there like a boss tone kind of dancing kind of guy for metal? Just like I don't have any hair, so I can't hair whip.
Someone's got to get the pit ninjas going, dude. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how's that gonna work when like shows finally do return? Are people push moshing? Or are they gonna push and then they're gonna sanitize?
Dude,
dude,
not fucking 6 feet away.
I don't know. The thing is like, I think, speaking for myself, like, I miss shows. I miss pits. I miss the whole thing. There's a group of people in unison. There for a communal experience. And like, even when it comes back, there's gonna be that apprehension, and I don't know that people are gonna be in such a hurry to be like right on top of each other anymore, the same way. At least not right away. It's going to be it's going to take some time, I think.
It's going to be a transition, yeah.
I mean, but I guess to the effect that, like, the one thing I thought of when I woke up the other day and I saw this Meshuggah video from, like, an Ozfest popped up, and I just saw this wall of cabinets, and I was like, oh my God, I missed being in front of that and just experiencing that push and the vibe of feeling, being
hearing
there.
loss for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, though, is like what Jay was saying earlier, our crowd's going to be that amped like they used to be anyway. I mean, like you said earlier, Brian, if they have a phone, they're going to stare at it. And yeah. I think that's like the biggest detriment to live shows in the last 15 years has just been like, people they're connected to everything all at once. So they're not really engaged in where they are right then. Whereas, before phones, going to that show was everything. And you had nothing but that show in front of you. Like, that was it. You were there. You were going to take that in, and you were going to lose your mind if you could. And now, like, well, I got my phone on me, and I'm getting messages, and I'm taking pictures, and I'm putting them on Facebook. And I've also seen 10,000 pictures of the band on the internet before this show, so I'm not really... The mystique is kind of gone, so, like, whatever.
You can tell the evolution of my concert going experience when I'm like, on this day I saw this band, and it's just a shot of the ticket, and then it's like there's that period of time where it's like I took a crummy video and posted it on Instagram, and it's like you could see the evolution of where my cell phone camera got better. But it's like, yeah, I don't know, it's weird. Like I can't even, like, when I was looking at like stuff from Ozfest 2000 when. Because I saw a video of this pitch shifter performance that was at the day that I went, and I'm like, wow, man, just imagine, going, put myself in 2000 Chris's shoes, and you're at this show, you have no cell phone, you're there with 8 people, you drove them all, you have no idea where you're going to meet these people at the show to get back in the car to drive back home.
By the porta potty.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems so bizarre, like how we ever went to shows without cell phones before,
Yet somehow we did, and it was fun.
Yeah. Well, Drew shared this video with me the other day of like an arena show from 9 Inch Nails in 1994, and they were just blowing up with Downward Spiral. And man, it was an arena show, and that crowd was insane.
MSG.
And I commented to him, I'm like, what happened to that? When I go to shows now, people like kind of stand there. They kind of want their own personal space, and like people leave and get beers 40 times in the middle of a show. Like the last time I saw Seven Dust, I was at a kind of a theater in Niagara Falls that probably holds like 15 to 2,000 people. And, like, I saw the same guy go in and out back to the bar, getting drinks, in and out.
Oh,
They're playing the whole time, not paying attention, And back in the day, in the 90s and 2000s, dude, if you were in a general admission show and you left, sorry. And nowadays, people come back up through the pit and are like, well, that was my spot. And it's like, dude, this is general admission and this is the front row. You left.
Bye.
But that's how I used to get up to front every time was people would leave to go get beer. I would just keep weaseling my way up. But it gradually, eventually, I just remember people just leaving their beer right on the ground. Like it was that comfortable where there's nothing. I mean, it depends on the type of show you're going to. Like I think it was like the December and I saw. And it, like people was like, I tried pushing my way up, and everyone's like, "What are you doing?" And like, you just knocked over my beer.
Yeah, I don't get it. The vibe has changed, and it is cell phones, but it's not just cell phones. It's just like
entitlement.
Maybe it's that. I think people just. I mean, it happens to everyone, and again, as you get older, younger generation is different. They came up with different things, but. It is weird that the show going experience even before COVID was just getting strange, and you don't see that mass of people that are like, I'm so fucking excited to see this band, and I'm gonna go apeshit the second that first note hits. And
it's kind of weird you bring that up because I will say, only going to Machine Head this year. I'm not disappointed with the way that I enjoyed that show. In fact, I think I enjoyed it a little too damn much because I think my enjoyment infringed on other people's enjoyment of the show. So, like, when they were cutting into some of those songs, because basically what Machine Head did, for those who didn't know, was they played a whole set of, like, I guess typical hits and everything. And then after that, they took a little break and they came out and they played their entire first album. And some of these songs I've
Contos and Mater.
Yeah, with the original two of the original dudes that were on the album. So I haven't heard some of these songs, and there's one song, 1,000 Lies, that I've never actually heard live, but I have literally watched a video of them performing that song at Dynamo 1,000 times. So when they were cutting into this, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my fucking shit. And I was all over the place, bumping into people, jumping up and down, get up. I'm
and then you realize you're 40 and then...
No, man, like I was just losing my shit. I was like, I don't care if I can't move tomorrow. I'm gonna fucking give my all to this shit to show them thank you for playing this song that I've wanted to hear forever. And I don't know. I mean, it's like the way that I think about it. I'm like, I'm kind of glad that I did do that, knowing that that was the only time this year that I'm ever gonna be able to go off at a show. I'm like, well, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't want to like be sitting here with like FOMO for not doing that and be like, wow, you really missed out there by, being like, oh, hooray, they're playing this song.
Yeah, and I think that's we need more of that because I miss. And again, I mean, I don't know if when I talk about the Seven Dust show, which was really one that pissed me off a lot because I hadn't seen that band in a while. They're still great live, and the crowd was just boring. And I'm like, this band in particular, like, has the most movable music. Like, when they start playing, you should just be going off. And to watch people just kind of stand there with their beers and kind of go, yeah, it's pretty good. And you're like, fuck you, let's go.
Well, it's also an older band. I mean,
yeah, but I've been finding that over my years of going to shows and taking pictures at shows that it usually takes about 2 bands for people to start moving in the crowds. Like, it's got to be like people either come in late, going out drinking at another place and then coming in and then they're all revved up to go. But I feel like people don't dance for openers anymore. It takes about 2 or 3 bands, depending on how many bands are playing on the show, though. But I guess it depends on the genre as well. But maybe your metalheads over there, you guys are got to branch out a little bit. Go see some.
It's always been about the same for metal too. Like the openers don't get the big reaction that the headliner gets, but the direct support usually gets a little bit of buzz, right?
Yeah.
It takes like that second headliner.
Yeah, and I what I've noticed too, I guess it really depends on the bands and stuff because like if you're talking about something like Seven Dust, I hate to say that they're like radio friendly, but maybe that's kind of the crowd they attract. Like when you go a little bit further back, like it's kind of weird. Like there was one show that I went to in Boston that was like Periphery and this band Six from England. I think this was like one of the only 2 tours that they ever did. And I remember the difference was like for Six, everybody was going off because, hey, you know, they're high energy. I mean, it's basically the same kind of band because I kind of feel like Periphery ripped them off, but that's a whole nother discussion. But then when Periphery came out, I kind of looked at their fan base and they were kind of like, there was one kid, like I just kind of like bumped into him accidentally and he got all like skittish about it. I'm like, what the fuck? Have you ever been to a fucking metal show, you little bitch?
Well, and I wonder if it is an age gap because, and truthfully, I don't know if I'm just holding on to the old days. Because obviously when I saw Seven Dust on even their first 3 records, I mean, I saw
Those
them.
shows were nuts,
Yeah,
dude.
they were insane. And again, yeah, you didn't have the cell phone. I mean, people always drank, but the way people drink at shows now, unless it's just a Buffalo thing,
I mean,
which it could be.
We are a drinking town with a football problem.
But yeah, it. Again,
Well, now
I don't
they
know
have
if it's
wine at
just the
shows.
younger crowd. Or, it's a weird thing, and
I just think about that Tool show that we went to. It just keeps coming back to me. Like,
oh yeah,
we paid how much for the? We were in the upper deck.
yeah.
And we paid probably what $100 plus for those tickets to sit in the upper deck. I think they were.
I think they were upper 60s, but then once you add service fee and taxes
like,
and driving there because it was in Pittsburgh,
right.
I mean, we definitely spent either way, even if it was $60,
$60,
which it was a little more than that, but.
And that row behind us, man, they were talking the whole set, getting drinks and just blah blah blah. I mean, me and you are like dialed in, like it's fucking Tool.
Yeah.
Like we are in this shit. And meanwhile, we got to listen to catty broads behind us. Pardon my terminology, but like that's what they were. They were just
ladies.
Catty broads.
brutal, man.
It was 2 couples, and the girls were talking to each other and the guys were talking to each other, and occasionally they'd talk to the other group, and
For the entire show.
Wait, so how long is it from Buffalo to Pittsburgh?
It's like 3.
3.5.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you driving that long for a show is gonna. That would be pissed off too. But you have to think about the concerts that you guys are going to. You're going to stadium shows where people go once a year. I think it's a little bit different of experience when it's just like smaller clubs, like 300 people kind of clubs.
Well,
True,
let me guess. They were talking the whole show, but like when Sober came on, they were like trying to do their Maynard imitations and everything because it's probably the only song they know.
Well, they didn't play Sober, so they were probably disappointed.
46 and 2 got him going though.
Yeah. But still, I mean, I think honestly it goes more to the point that it was an arena show where you paid a shit ton of money. And Tool is a band that you should experience. Now, I'm not as big a stickler about the phone thing. It's annoying if it's up in front of your face the whole time. I guess for me, if I can get in the front row, I'm probably going to have my phone out because I'm a photographer too, and I know that I can take good pictures with my phone, and I've gotten some pretty great stuff just by being in the front row. I know it. I try not to get in anyone else's way when I do it.
As long as it's not an iPad.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen that.
I mean, Tool's restriction on the phone, and that was the other thing. They made you put your phone away. Like, you didn't have a choice. The security was out. They disrupted the show because one guy whipped it out for like 30 seconds, and then they shined flashlights all over the show. And you're like,
annoying too.
That was more annoying than the guy using his phone. But
That's a whole other podcast.
Well, no, they used to do that at the Palladium. They used to have like a no video rule where they, in fact, I got basically punched at a Meshuggah show because they were going after somebody. I didn't go to the Palladium for a while because of it.
I just think if you're going to spend that much money and then your phone is being put away, and maybe that's part of it, like, oh, I can't nervously fidget with something, so let's talk. But like, you've got a band that you should be focusing on. They've got intense visuals.
You spent the money to be here.
Great music. You spent a shit ton of money. Why? I mean, I don't even want to excuse any talking, but I could get it if they talked for like a little bit and then they shut up and enjoyed the show. But it was all 2 hours. And I could hear them because lately arena shows and even other shows, they're not quite as loud as they used to be.
Yeah.
They're like comfortable levels to where like sometimes I'm like, do I need earplugs? Because it sounds quiet when I put my earplugs in. But because of that, you could hear them. Like their voices were cutting through. And as far as the future of show going goes, like that shit needs to go.
I've had experiences with because I usually I prefer the smaller shows and as opposed to concerts. But I remember for my birthday, I'm like, this is like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I told my wife, I'm like, I want to see Billy Joel. I've never seen him live. He does one of his 1,000 shows at, MSG. So I finally go there from around my birthday, and it was just like a miserable experience because everyone was just talking. He's like, oh, he's going to play Allentown now. He's going to and it's just like, shut the fuck up, just watch.
Well, I mean, I don't remember the experience too much because obviously it's been a while since I kind of, lived in that area. But I can say, my 10 years up here in New England, that there seems to be this thing when bands will play in either Gillette or they'll play at Fenway, that people will go not because they care about the artist. They'll just go because it's like the Boston thing to do. I mean,
for the grand.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what's happening. And that's kind of, I didn't have any real bad experiences at the couple but the stadium Metallica shows that we went to in like 2017. They were pretty good, but that was the vibe that you got is like, we're here because it's the thing to do. Like, let's go see Metallica before we can't see them. And that's cool and all, but yeah, the influx of people that don't care about what they're seeing, it makes the shows less special.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because, we all went to that one at Gillette Stadium, and I think like you and Joe went up, and maybe you had a slightly different experience than me and Drew, but like I remember looking around, like, there's some people that are into it, but for the most part, like me and Drew are like singing like almost every word, and we're looking around, there's people that are like, are they going to play Enter Sandman?
Yes.
Yes, they will.
To.
Relax.
No, and that I could totally see that when we moved up more towards the ego ramp, people were definitely into it, and I liked that more. Like I was glad that I did that because I was around fans that were into it, and that's what I love. I mean, I love the floor. I love GA. I'm not a pit guy, but I want to be in the crowd and I want to be around people that are loving what they're seeing.
Well, the bigger the band, I think you're gonna have more of those casual whatever kind
once
of people.
Once a year people.
Yeah. But hey, it's all green to that band though, right? Like Metallica doesn't care how big a fan you are as long as you're at the show.
Unless you're being a disrespectful asshole and talking and they notice it, then they'll call you out. Certain bands I've seen do that. Like I've seen people with like their back turned to the stage looking at their phone. They're like, can you fucking stop? It's rude. I'm trying to sing.
Yeah, I'd be more okay with people pointing their phones at the band. Like, I'm going to take a picture, I'm going to take a video, rather than like scrolling Twitter while there's a band playing. That to me is like, okay, you can get the fuck out.
I mean, I've done that, but it's always I go away to the corner where it's like on the wall, so I'm like checking like hockey scores or something.
I'll do that in between bands because I will say this for phones, that wait for the headliner to come on used to be excruciating, and now you can just dick around on your phone and like, okay, they're playing.
It still can be torture waiting for the bands sometimes. Yeah. Depending on the band, it could be a lot. Reggae bands, especially, it's like after midnight, and I'm like, come on.
I will say this in terms of weight, and I know there was one show last year that I went to that I went specifically to see Gojira, and there was a changeover of 45 minutes after Gojira was done until the next band came on, and I was like, you know what, I don't even want to see this band that much. I really hope that when we come out of this, that bullshit like that doesn't ever happen again, because there's literally no excuse for it.
No, crews and tour management and things like that have gotten a lot better in recent years, and I think bigger bands definitely stick to schedules better than they used to when you were waiting an hour for Axl Rose to finish drinking and smoking and get his ass on stage.
I always hold it to the Ozfest second stage thing, because those guys had a process, man. It was like a 5 minutes in between bands.
Warped Tour, same thing.
Yeah, you had 2.5 minutes to pick your shit up and get the fuck off stage, and then the next band had to be ready to go, or you were losing time in your set. And I remember
man, a lot of local bands could learn some lessons from Ozfest.
Really.
I had an experience in my last band. There was a show we played, I guess it was like 12 years ago, where we only had, 20 minutes, and we're all ready to go, and the other guitarist is like slowly unraveling his foot pedal. It's like, dude, you don't even switch channels. Let's fucking go.
I could tell some horror stories, but on the off chance this gets tagged on Facebook, I don't want to offend some people who might know.
Oh, I don't even want to go into the whole the drummer with 17 cymbals thing, but I literally seen a drummer set up 17 cymbals on a stage during a festival that was running ahead of schedule, and he knocked it back in schedule because of that. But,
I'm gonna fix that.
Yeah.
This is going too good. We can't have that.
I guess maybe we've kind of gone on too long. I hope we didn't scare.
No, that's all right.
away
I actually wanted to bring up something though.
Okay.
Something related. I think is Brexit. With UK bands, they potentially are going to be. I mean, I think the bigger bands are going to be okay with it, but I think it's going to be really, really hard for them to even tour just Europe. Like they're going to need a visa for every country, it seems. And
are you talking about just bands coming from Europe over to here, or bands coming
in
from
general?
over here?
Like just UK bands in general are just going to have a really tough time of like smaller bands, because you're going to need like insurance, you're going to need crew, like just for that, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be thousands of dollars or pounds or euro, just to go
Whatever
to like
they decide to go with.
yeah, UK to France, you know.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought much about that, but that's actually a great point.
Yeah, they rebooked a lot of those festivals for like June and July, and I know that Stick to Your Guns on their podcast, they said that they don't think any of those shows are realistically happening. So, I mean, it sounds all nice, but at the same time, I also envision that Europe is going to be running a lot faster than we, up and running a lot faster than we are.
Yeah, they're hitting some spikes now, too. I had just heard that I don't know if it's all of Great Britain or just if it's just London, but they're shutting down for a strict month. Like we're gonna take
Paris
4 weeks.
And
We're gonna knock all this out so we could get back to normal. Which, yeah, nobody wants to close down again, but
And what's crazy is those numbers.
If we all coordinated and did it, it might actually make a difference.
Yeah, and the numbers that they're seeing, like compared to what we're seeing, like they're panicking over numbers that are like a small fraction of what we're seeing, but they're like instituting things to kind of move forward. I mean,
America's number one, baby.
Maybe if we didn't have a president who just, hoped this thing would just go away, maybe we would have been a little bit under control, but I don't know. I mean, I really feel for a lot of these bands because, I mean, the way that I'm looking at it is I don't imagine that we're going to be seeing any bands from overseas for a long time, probably at least until maybe the latter part of 2022, if this is the way that it is. Because, I mean, it was already expensive for bands to, come overseas anyway. So I can imagine it might not even be financially,
It wasn't even expensive. It was just visa problems. And that was even with during Obama's time, as there was this I knew UK bands, so I would just end up going over there to go see concerts over there because the bands just were getting denied visas just to go in the United States. I can't imagine what it is going to be post COVID. Yeah. Go ahead.
It's certainly not going to be easier.
No.
Yeah, and there were a number of bands that were getting stopped at the border too for a while. They were like, well, where some bands they'd have to hire a fill-in just to play shows in Canada because one member couldn't make it across.
That one bar fight, it's gonna.
No, like something stupid. Like I think Lamb of God early on, I think like one of the guys couldn't make it across because he got caught with weed once, and I guess that was like a big no-no at one point in time. I guess they got over it eventually.
Yeah, I don't think that matters in Canada now. But now that it doesn't matter over there, don't bring it with you. Just wait till you cross the border and go get whatever you want.
Yeah. I guess maybe we've kind of gone on a while about a lot of things, so I hope we didn't lose anybody. But I guess one thing I kind of wanted to do going around, I want to kind of know, like, obviously you haven't seen any bands for a while. Is there one band that you would love to be your first band? Like, what? And, like, I mean, obviously I don't expect you to be able to blurt it out at once.
New Kids on the Block. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. But, like, what band, maybe active or inactive would you like to kind of see first?
I mean, I think Jason and I are both going to say the same thing. Like, it better be Metallica.
I mean, nothing makes me. It's going to sound silly, but seriously, like the vibe and just the emotion of going to a Metallica show, like it never gets old.
No,
it never gets. I mean, I don't want to say it doesn't get topped because when you see a show like S&M or whatever, I mean, it's incredible, but. I mean, I would maybe throw one other backup option in there, and that would just be Rage Against the Machine because I've never seen them, and I was so stoked to have those tickets, and for that concert to be canceled, it's like, please let that show happen at some point because I never got to see him the first time around.
You better hope Zach doesn't change his mind and go back into hiding.
Yeah, right.
My backup would be that 5-night Nine Inch Nails stand.
Well, yeah, that would be.
Because, man, when I found out about that after the fact, I was literally depressed for like a month.
Well, there's a lot of things that we didn't hear about because some bands were still kind of holding on to.
Right.
Yeah, because some of those things might happen. I mean, there's still a lot of bands that still have albums in the can that they're afraid to release. That I'm just like, well, I mean, what are you waiting for? I mean, I know Hatebreed was originally supposed to put their album out in May. And they shelved it, and then they finally just said the hell with it, and they're putting it out in like 2 weeks.
There's been a lot of music out this year.
Yeah.
I'll let you guys throw in your picks, but I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna make this podcast way too long, but
doesn't matter. There's no limit.
we're going 3 hours on this one.
It's usually an hour and a half.
If I had to sit through that 3 hour Scotty in one, we're going the length.
We're at about an hour now. We're all right.
No. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I kind of had been like, since the Acacia Strain had like a really strong year with those 7 inches that merged into that record, I kind of really want to hear that live. And I know that the clips and stuff, and the last time I saw them live was like, I don't know, 2 years ago. I just kind of want to feel that energy live with them because, I don't know, like they've really kind of completely turned themselves around. And for as negative as the music is, it's actually a very positive show.
I know for me, I'm just gonna think small and just a ska show, just because I know so many of the bands, and it's like a huge just community, and I feel welcomed, in a way, like, hey Brian, hey, so it doesn't matter what band. I mean, hopefully it's Madness, but I don't know. I foresee that show still getting pushed back because of visa issues, like I brought up before, or Brexit. I mean, they are a huge band, so they already sold out the show. It's just a matter of it being pushed back. But yeah, I don't know, something like that, like Madness or some type of ska show. where people know me, like I can get it for free.
I guess it's the one thing that stinks about it is, I ended up getting rid of pretty much every ticket, and the ones that I did have, they just canceled the show. They rebooked the tours, and they cut the local dates out for me, so I kind of lost that. But I guess it's like the one thing that's been a little rough for me to deal with throughout this is having concerts and, like things like wrestling and other events to go to. It gave you something to look forward to. Like you're like, oh man, end of this month, I'm going to this. And
I miss Comic-Con. I wanted to go to that.
yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff, just the whole nature of like meet and greets and stuff like that. Like, I don't even know how that's going to work. I mean, our band's going to have to cut that out because I know there are some people doing it. And I remember there used to be that long running joke where everybody would like shit on the people doing the signings that had the hand sanitizer. It's like, well, what now, huh?
Yeah. Pioneers.
Yeah.
We could do a meet and greet in a sealed plexiglass sarcophagus. Thanks for coming.
Here's an idea for bands to do. The bands can give someone a COVID test, and they can pay for that.
Yeah, we'll sign your COVID test.
I don't think I want these drunk assholes shoving a Q-tip up my nose.
No.
Yeah, Doyle is like, hold still. I need to hit you. Wait, you got makeup on that? It doesn't matter.
Danzig's gonna give you turn your head and cough.
I need to get a blood sample.
Cough cool.
I'm a photographer. I better watch myself. You might punch me.
Yeah, right. I think you're right about that, Chris. And I mean, this could be said for so many things during this time period. Is not having something to look forward to. And there's literally nothing. Like, the small victories are like, oh, we can sit at a restaurant 3 booths away from somebody, which I haven't done because I haven't done either. Care to even bother that. I'll get curbside and go home. I'm way more comfortable there. But aside from that, like, yeah, having a show where you're like, all right, work's a pain in the ass. This is stressful, whatever. But holy shit, we're going to see Tool in 2 weeks. Like that kind of thing, like that gets you through. And there is some sort of positive mental health thing that comes from like, I'm going to go do something really cool. Like, I mean, dude, my whole 2019 was, I don't want to say it was all great because nothing's all great, but being able to look forward to flying out to California and as a photographer seeing all those sights and then capping it off with 2 of the most incredible Metallica shows I've ever seen. Like I was planning on flying out to California again for the show we just streamed because I was expecting that to be a show that was actually played at a venue. And that was another big thing for me. I'm like, I'm going to see Tool. I'm going to see Rage Against the Machine. I'm going to see Gojira and Deftones. And I'm flying out to fucking California again, and I'm going to see Metallica. And, like, 2020 was supposed to be the shit.
You got the shit part right.
Yeah, for real.
It was just shit. It wasn't the shit.
I was told there'd be pie and punch.
Yeah.
There isn't any. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. It's like when you think of some things, this is all you could do. I mean, the closest thing I could see to wrestling, I mean, I only went to that one Beyond Wrestling show in January, but the only other times I've seen, had anything wrestling related was I went to the guy who runs that company. He also runs a food truck, and I went to the food truck 7 times because I was just like, this is the closest thing to me supporting local wrestling right here. And it's just like, I think the last event that I went to with that, there was like some like live cover band. I'm like, well, this is the closest I'm going to get to a concert for the rest of the year, so I guess I'm good. But
I know in town there's always bands playing, and like people are there, and I'm like, well, it's free, but it's like I can hear it from my balcony. I'm like, yeah, I don't need to go see that.
But I mean, overall, like I think one of the things is having all of us on the podcast together. I mean, the last concert I went to with a friend was you, Brian, when we went to the Misfits at Madison Square Garden. It's like,
I know you on your phone all day.
Yeah, I mean, like
at the show, Chris? No.
No, and like when we were at like the Metallica show and just seeing like those pictures popping up recently, like, hey, when we were at the Metallica show in Buffalo and those other ones, it's like it gets me like it's like I'm like, man, like I want to know that we're going to have that again, but I just don't want to like put this question mark as to when, because it just ultimately disappoints, because over the course of the pandemic there's been some projects I've done to keep myself busy, and one of them was looking back at all these old shows that I went to, and I'm looking at some of these like venues and some of these bands, and I'm like, some of these venues haven't existed for like 15 years. Some of these bands
there's gonna be some venues that are gonna close though.
Yeah, it's like these things are never coming back, and it's like I almost wonder if that's going to be like some ominous tone for how things are going to be, after this,
Yeah. So this is a nice uplifting podcast.
Well, we'll get there eventually. I just worry where, obviously when all those shows started getting canceled, it was, well, we're going to play the exact same date next year. And it's like, well, now it's the middle of November. We haven't figured anything out because we're dumb as a nation collectively. And, the chances of an arena show being ready to go by May, I don't see that happening.
No.
I wonder what's going to happen with the rock cruises and the cruise kind of concert things.
Dude,
like
that.
Oh,
forget about that.
No, they've already pretty much any one of them that was like scheduled. Like I think the Slipknot one was done. The Coheed one I think was 100% refunded too. The only one that I know still has not been like refunded, they've just rescheduled a bunch of times, is that Jericho cruise. And
well, because he's a moron, so
Yeah.
But I mean, cruise ships in general were already like germs, on the water.
Oh yeah.
So it's like. Now it's gonna. And I think there was like the first cruise ship that was back out. Like there was a bunch of cases already. Like that's no shit.
We're gonna have like hospital ward shows where everyone gathers in like a big mess hall to see the show, and then you all have to go quarantine for a week in your hospital bed.
So
we
legit have a chance of having Anthrax play an actual madhouse.
Right? They will be spreading the disease.
Yes.
All right, so I guess we're pretty much at the end. So I guess I want to say thanks to Jay and Drew for joining this in Buffalo. I'm sure I took away from you guys listening to records, which I pretty much did.
Shame on you.
Yeah. The guy who's got this ridiculous record collection saying, "No, you're not allowed to listen. You need to be on this podcast."
It's the only day we get to listen to them.
Can't listen any other day. Well, I can't anyway.
I'm here too, Chris.
Oh, yeah, Brian, when are you going to get some records, huh?
I don't like records. That's a whole nother podcast of why I just don't like records.
Part 2.
Yeah.
Why we all gang up on Brian.
Is that one of the things that you forgot to mention on the Things That Scared You as a Child podcast?
Records?
Yeah, records.
I did have, I think it was it like a Fresh Prince and it had Freddy Krueger song on it record? I might have.
I had that.
Oh, don't make me look that up on Discogs. I don't even want to know what that was that you got rid of.
I still have it.
Oh.
Oh, no, wait. I didn't have the Freddy Krueger one. I had Parents Just Don't Understand.
Oh.
And I used to pretend to like scratch it, even though it was just really just scratching the record.
Yeah.
That was probably the last vinyl I owned. No, people send me vinyl all the time, and I have like on a website like, don't send me vinyl. I don't even have a CD player.
Yo, man, what the hell? Send them me, man.
Well, it's not like Norwegian dark forest metal Viking.
Yeah, that's exactly what I listen to all the time.
Whatever.
Yeah, what's it? Most of this stuff, it sucks because it's like I've been waiting for like some cool advances, and like everybody just sends you like real like big trash, and then it's like I'm like, why couldn't they just send us like this other record? Like, where's the Hate Breed advance at? I don't care about like this other band from whatever, It's like
we're small potatoes.
Yeah.
You're supposed to help break the new bands, Chris, not tell people about the bands they already like.
Yeah, well, I'm old. That's the problem. I'm old, and I only review stuff that I want to hear.
Yeah, and I barely review anything.
Yeah.
But
Well, I do
Yeah.
have that lovely horrible looking movie coming in the mail. Apparently, it's some B movie with Jackie Chan and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
oh god, yeah. So well, that's something to look forward to, right?
Yeah, that'll be in a future review if that arrives safely. And I got to tell you, just seeing the cover and then seeing Jackie Chan and Arnold Schwarzenegger and knowing that this was not good enough to go in theaters that had nothing to do with COVID, I'm really looking forward to that.
The trailer looks so bad. I'm like, this is Chris's alley right here.
When was this movie made?
I don't know when, but
Probably
I
a
mean,
year or two. It's like a lot of these studios right now.
Oh,
They've
really?
been
It's new?
putting stuff out that haven't been on the shelves for like a couple of years just to get some money.
it looks like it's going to have a lot of really bad CG. So that combined with the fact that it is an Arnold movie.
And Jackie Chan, yeah.
Yeah.
Oof. Well, guys, it's been fun talking about the future of concerts, which sounds pretty bleak for the next year.
Or the lack thereof, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
just as in a personal note, like, I got an album I'm almost done with, and I'm like, well, what's the rush of finishing it now? Because there's no real release plan. Like, we can't do a release show, so there's no big event to kick it off. So it's just going to get dumped on the internet with everything else and then forgotten about the next day. So, yeah, that's where we're at. Everything is terrible, and yay.
Everything
Everything
is
is terrible.
Everything is terrible when you're in 2020.
Yeah, sure is. Lego lied to us. Everything is not awesome.
That's like the Mondo Blocks movie or something like that. Whatever the Lego rival is.
Yeah, Mega Blocks. Yeah.
Yeah, Mega Blocks. I guess aside from that too, you want to do a plug for your podcast too?
Sure. You can check me out sporadically, usually twice a month now. It seems to be our schedule that we've settled on at the devilsdupodcast.com. We're also all over Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Google Play, etc., etc., etc. Just search for the Devil's Due Podcast, and you'll find us. We talk about comic books, video games, tabletop games, a little bit of pro wrestling, superhero movies, Star Wars, all the geeky kind of stuff. That's our territory. So
Hey, man, that's my territory. Get back off.
hey,
No, it's all right.
not trying to step on your turf, bro.
No, it's all right. I used to interview bands until I started getting threatened.
By Danzig?
Show me on the doll where Danzig touched you.
What are you doing?
You better watch out. He's got that pile of bricks in his front yard.
Didn't he sell that house? I think he sold that house.
Oh yeah, that's right. He lives in Lucille Ball's house. Oh, well, I probably shouldn't have given up his house location that you can probably Google and be like, there it is, right there.
In California?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was it? What they probably it's because it's Lucille's Ball's old house. They probably do Hollywood tours past it. You know, and here's Lucille Ball's old house, and you see this angry guy just staring at you from the window.
What's he carrying? What's that meme where he's carrying something?
Oh, the cat litter. I just picture him like in a bathrobe with like instead of having the just the little thing closing it, there's the belt buckle, and he's sitting there with this black coffee mug where it's just black coffee inside of it.
Oh, Glenn. All right, guys. It's been fun. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
No problem.